Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Adam Limerace, and with me is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. And we want to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. Thank you for investing in Grid Network. Link to our Patreon in the video description below. And please feel free to comment in the chat room below and ask any questions. Tonight, we'll discuss a rising young European open-wheel driver in serious trouble. Talks of Oscar Piastri being on the 2023 F1 grid is heating up. Matt White's grid history update and a special tribute to a true motorsports legend we lost earlier today in NASCAR. We'll start discussing a Red Bull Junior driver in the words of Kyle Larson, a particular driver that said a word that should never, ever be said.
Formula 2 and Red Bull Junior driver Jüri Vips is in big trouble for using a racial slur. Vips was playing a video game online with fellow Red Bull Junior Liam Lawson on Twitch when he did the unthinkable, said the most offensive word ever to the black community. Vips dropped the N-word. And here's the clip of Vips using this word. Grid Network has decided to bleep out the word itself in what you're about to hear because we understand how deeply offensive and painful it is, especially for people who look like me.
Oh, I cracked him!
Oh my god.
Fuck. Oh, yeah.
Jüri.
Yeah.
Jüri, yeah.
Oh, fucking man, I hate snipers now. I keep fucking cracking them.
Red Bull announced they've suspended Vips from all team duties effective immediately. This comes after Vips made his Formula One practice debut with Red Bull in Spain, becoming the first driver from Estonia to participate in a Formula One race weekend. Red Bull is planning to investigate the incident, and they condemned his language and emphasized their zero tolerance policy to racist language or behavior within their organization. Adam, will this incident ultimately be the end of Jüri Vips' road to Formula One?
Yes, Kobe, I believe it will. Jüri Vips I believe we could have seen him on the grid within a couple of years, but now, unfortunately, his career is ruined. He was a great driver, one of the best Red Bull Junior drivers, and now he's lost it. It's sad to see what happened, and what Jüri Vips needs to understand: think before you talk. Think about who's watching you. Think about what you're saying, because it could come back to bite you. So, Jüri Vips, his F1 career to me is now gone.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. I think Jüri Vips is racing career. Well, not I don't know if his racing career overall is going to be over, but I think his Formula One career is most likely go. What well his path to try to have a Formula One career. That's a better way to put it. Will probably be over after this, because I'm sure Red Bull doesn't want to be associated with a driver who's bringing in bad press like that. And as you said in the beginning, Adam, like Kyle Larson said in his apology video after he got in trouble from Monza Madness, Jüri Vips said a word that should never ever be said. And it's unfortunate that drivers can't learn from the Kyle Larson incident. And so apparently Jüri Vips hasn't learned that lesson at all, and he's certainly going to have to pay for it. Now it's really good to see that Red Bull is going to be investigating this incident. It seems like they're going to take it seriously. I don't see how Jüri Vips is going to be able to survive using the N word on this Twitch stream. We have a comment from our own Jose Amigo saying, "You see Jüri Vips replaced by another driver in the program." Yeah, Red Bull certainly has a lot of junior drivers in their program, including I believe Jack Crawford, who's racing in Formula 3, young American driver who could potentially go up to Formula 2 maybe next year or so. A lot of people really high on Crawford, and they believe that he can potentially become one of the next American Formula 1 drivers. So Red Bull is certainly not hurting for talent at all within their program. And in anything, you're easily replaceable, and Jüri Vips is certainly very replaceable. So, and it's super unfortunate that this incident had to happen. But Vips did issue an apology on his Instagram saying, "I wish to unreservedly apologize for the offensive language used during a live gaming stream earlier today. This language is entirely unacceptable and does not portray the values and principles that I hold. I deeply regret my actions, and this is not the example I wish to set. I will cooperate with the investigation fully, Jüri." And as I said, many are comparing this situation to 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Larson's fall after Monza Madness on iRacing. To refresh anyone's memory, during the COVID lockdown, many of the NASCAR drivers turned to iRacing to pass the time until racing returned. Larson was a part of the virtual racing event called Monza Madness, and he was caught on a hot mic using the N word. At the time, Larson had no idea that others could hear him until fellow NASCAR driver Anthony Alfredo told Larson that everyone heard him say that word on the live stream. And I'm wondering if Jüri Vips thought the same thing. I wonder if Jüri thought his mic was muted and said that word when he thought nobody was listening. And to get into another point right quick, the use of the N word on gaming is really becoming ingrained in online gaming culture. When I used to play a lot of games myself online, I heard people dropping the N word all the time. It seems like something that's just, as I said, it's just been deeply ingrained in online gaming culture, and it's something that really needs to get out of it. There's really no right time to use the N word. I don't think it should be in anyone's vocabulary. And getting back on topic, this was the beginning of Kyle Larson's downfall in spring 2020. He got dropped by Chevrolet. His sponsors left, and Chip Ganassi Racing basically did not have a choice but to fire him. Larson went through sensitivity training and took steps to gain a better understanding of the world around him. While Larson was suspended for most of 2020, he raced on dirt, as some thought he might never race in NASCAR ever again. But Larson eventually did. He got an even better cup ride than the Ganassi car he was in. Hendrick Motorsports signed him in their first season together, won a total of 10 races in the Cup Championship. So Larson was able to bounce back from using the N word, but I'm not sure if Vips will be able to do the same and try to get back on the path to Formula One. And right now, Vips sits seventh in the Formula One driver standings behind another Red Bull Junior driver, Dennis Hauger, who's who's in fifth. Plus, the standards are far higher over there on the other side of the pond. As Santino Ferrucci, who caused many issues during his time in Formula 2, including allegations over racial abuse towards his Indian-born teammate. Ferrucci's path to F1 ended after that incident. Adam, would you agree that Europe has a higher set of standards when dealing with racial abuse or anything that violates the rules?
Yeah, I like what Europe does, Kobe, and it's actually the Jüri Vips is seventh in the F2 point standings. So I like, if I were Jüri Vips, I would go, if I can, I would go through what Kyle Larson went through. Um, and maybe that would help him in, you know, compete in races, you know, like Kyle Larson did, and who knows what would happen. I'm glad Jüri Vips did apologize for using that word. So if I were Jüri Vips, if I could, I would go through sensitivity training and learn from his mistakes. And we have a comment from Amber saying Red Bull has a bro culture program when you have young, immature men. I agree with that, Amber. And my husband hears it too. Gaming and online gaming community is bad. Yeah, I'll agree with that too, Amber. And we thank you for your comments.
Yeah, Amber brought up some interesting points there about the broke culture stuff. I know we see that obviously a lot in fraternities at frat houses and other places as well. Lots of immature young men who really need to grow up, and it sounds like Yuri Vip certainly is an immature young driver who certainly has a lot of growing up and learning to do about the world around him. And I'm glad Yuri Vips was able to issue that apology, and I genuinely hope that he's going to make a genuine effort to try to change his ways and learn why he cannot use the N word in any type of situation. And going back to your comment, Amber, about the gaming community being really bad, yeah, you just heard me say, I've certainly seen it myself. How awful it can be. Even people I know, believe it or not, in the past, playing online with some high school buddies, you hear people using the N word all the time, even in situations where you really shouldn't use it anyways. But people are just throwing it around for no reason, and unfortunately, when something is so deeply ingrained in a culture like that, it's really hard to get rid of it. So unfortunately, I'm not sure if there's much we can do right now in the gaming world. But if you're gaming and you hear someone using N word, I think the best thing you can do to try to make an attempt to change the culture is to call it out. You see somebody, well, you hear somebody using the N word on an online game you're playing, to immediately call them out and tell them that they cannot do that, and and report them if that's possible. I'm not sure if you can do that. And got another comment right here from just San Diego saying if Yuri Vips does reach out to Kyle Larson and go through the same journey that Kyle did, his eyes will open to the challenges many face. I'm not sure if Yuri Vips has contact to Kyle Larson, but or if Larson has potentially reached out to him. But I think it would be a really good idea for those two to get into contact. So Yuri can ask Kyle questions like, Kyle, what did you go through when this happened? What were some of the emotions, and how were you able to bounce back? And what do you learn during your downfall? And I agree with the point that Adam made about sensitivity for Yuri Vips to take and get him back to the question itself, about Europe potentially having higher standards. I think yes and no. Because I feel like if you're on the road to Formula One and you mess up, kind of like Santino Ferrucci did when those allegations were made that he was being racist to his Indian-born teammate. Ferrucci was basically, banished from Formula Two, is banished from the road to F1, and that was the end of that. I feel like in incidents like that, they dropped the hammer down hard, and you really won't have another chance to have an opportunity over there. While Kyle Larson, he said the N word. We didn't know if he was coming back to NASCAR again. He was suspended indefinitely. He took the sensitivity training, went through several steps to try to better himself, and he was able to come back and get a second chance. So I imagine maybe like 1-2 years down the road. I'm not sure if Yuri Vips' racing career might be over. His goals to being a Formula One driver from Estonia is probably going to be over, but maybe he can potentially have a career in sports car racing. Maybe an IndyCar team would be willing to take a chance on him, and he could have a career over here in the United States racing in the NTT IndyCar series. I don't think his career is potentially over, but his time as a Red Bull Junior driver probably going to be over. Probably going to lose that Red Bull backing, that comes along with being fired from the Red Bull Junior program, and a lot of us thought that Dan Ticktum was a lot of trouble when he was a Red Bull junior driver, and Jüri Vips has really unleashed a whole new set of problems for Red Bull. And before we move on to your supercar spotlight segment, we have a question here from Darkness has Fallen, saying who is going to replace Jüri Vips. So Adam, you have any wild predictions who could potentially replace Jüri Vips in Formula 2?
Well, you mentioned the American star Jack Crawford. That could be a potential to me. I mean, everything that from what I've seen and heard, he's a really good driver. He's a really good driver. So, I think I think it could be Jack Crawford.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people really love to see another American on the FA Formula 2 grid, joining other American Logan Sargent, who's racing for Carlin and doing reasonably well right now in the championship. I believe he's in the top 5 in points. And got another comment here from Joe saying that Larson has had a second chance at his career, but some fans and people will never cheer or forgive him. Yeah, I totally agree with that, Joe. I've seen it myself in talking from people of color I know who work in NASCAR. They told me themselves they still don't forgive Kyle Larson for what he said, and they don't understand why I've moved on from that incident. But I think it's something, you just have to respect. Everybody moves at a different speed. Some people will forgive Kyle Larson eventually, and that's perfectly fine. And some people won't forgive him because that word is very hurtful, especially to the black community. And I understand why some people feel like that they can never forgive Larson for what he's saying. Got another comment from Amber saying you don't know who races in F3 for Red Bull, but you can see one of them getting a call. And the American driver we just mentioned, Jack Crawford, is a Red Bull junior driver in FA Formula 3. So it'll be interesting to see if he potentially gets the call up, and if Crawford doesn't get the call up, they'll probably look for some other drivers who have had recent Formula 2 experience.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who replaces Jüri Vips. And, I think Jack Crawford would be the perfect driver. It'd be kind of nice to see another American going against Logan Sargent in F2, to see 2 Americans on the grid. That'd be really cool. And hopefully one of those drivers can eventually get to Formula 1 and we could see another American on the grid. That hasn't happened for a while, so who knows? And now to some news from the world of supercars on this Wednesday night. Prima Air Racing released Gary Jacobson from his contract, losing his seat in the Repco Supercars Championship. This comes after 3 disappointing finishes in the Darwin Triple Crown. The highlight of Jacobson's season so far is 3 strong runs at Albert Park in Melbourne. Otherwise, it's been a struggle for him and his former teammate, Chris Pither. Jacobson is currently 24th in the Repco Supercars Championship, one of the few drivers who has entered every race this season. The Supercars future is up in the air as of now. It's been reported that Jacobson's 2 most likely replacements are Zane Goddard and Kurt Kostecki. And next, here's Kobe with some sad news about a pioneer in the world of NASCAR that passed earlier today.
And before we move on to that, I wanted to acknowledge a comment in the chat room from Don saying the better question is who is going to replace Cordell as Silverstone, and that is a really good question, Don. I understand that Cordell got a race ban after collecting so many penalty points, and it is really rare to see a driver get a race ban nowadays. So I'm sure when Cordell is able to return to the driver's seat, he's really going to have to buckle down and get with the program, because getting a race ban this early in your career is certainly not a good look at all. And as Adam just alluded to, this afternoon, the motorsports world lost a true giant. Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, better known as SMI, its founder, Bruton Smith passed away this afternoon due to natural causes at age 95. Smith leaves behind a powerful legacy in motorsports, philanthropy, and automotive retail. Along with being the founder and executive chairman at SMI, he also held those same titles at Sonic Automotive and Speedway Children's Charities. He served as a paratrooper in the U.S. Army for 2 years stateside during the Korean War. During the darkest days of NASCAR history, Smith became one of the first race promoters to pay good purses. He made sure the fans had a good experience at the track and did a lot of thinking outside the box to promote race events. In 1959, he joined forces with NASCAR driver Curtis Turner and built Charlotte Motor Speedway, which opened in 1960, and tried something innovative, the longest race in NASCAR history, known back then as the World 600, but today as the Coca-Cola 600. It was a true test of driver and machine at long distance race that NASCAR had not seen up to that point. And you guys remember that one hot night, the 1992 Winston All Star race? Charlotte was the first non short track to host a race under the lights. SMI facilities were the first in motorsports to add condominiums, fine dining, speedway clubs, super speedway lighting, and giant high definition video screens. Smith's SMI company was founded in December 1994, and only a couple of months later, by February 1995, SMI became the first motorsports company in history to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. SMI owns Atlanta Motor Speedway, Bristol Motor Speedway, Charlotte Motor Speedway, Dover Motor Speedway, Kentucky Speedway, which is currently not in use, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Nashville Super Speedway, which they're going to be racing at this weekend, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Sonoma Raceway, Texas Motor Speedway, and North Wilkesboro Speedway, an iconic venue in Wilkes County. Preparing for its racing revival, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was actually on track earlier today testing his super late model. And right here, have a statement from NASCAR chairman and CEO Jim France. He says race fans are and always will be the lifeblood of NASCAR. Few knew this truth better than Bruton Smith. Bruton built his racetracks employing a simple philosophy: give race fans memories that they'll cherish for a lifetime. In doing so, Bruton helped grow NASCAR's popularity as the preeminent spectator sport. His vision and legacy inspired many, and his fan first mentality remains today through his son, Marcus Smith. On behalf of the France family and all of NASCAR, I offer my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Bruton Smith, a giant of our sport. And in 2006, Smith was inducted into the North Carolina Business Hall of Fame. The following year, 2007, the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. Then in 2016, he was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And then in the photo here, courtesy of NASCAR. So, Adam, how powerful of a legacy does Bruton Smith leave behind?
Well, Kobe, I can let our viewers know. I've been to three of I've been to three of the tracks that Kobe mentioned: Atlanta Motor Speedway, Bristol Motor Speedway, and Charlotte Motor Speedway. What Bruton Smith did for NASCAR was incredible. I can remember when he announced he was going to put lights at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and people thought he was crazy. Well, he wasn't crazy. He wanted, it was the first time that lights have gone on a super speedway other than a short track. And I remember the 1992 Winston All-Star race in Charlotte. It came down to a fabulous finish between Kyle Petty and the late great Davey Allison. Kyle Petty hooked Davey Allison into the wall, and Davey couldn't celebrate in victory lane. Why? Because he went to the hospital. What Bruton Smith did for NASCAR was incredible. His legacy, he went to the internet, he was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. I can say this to all of yours. If you ever get a chance, you need to go to the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. They got some pretty cool stuff there from the world of motorsports. And Amber says Bruton Smith was bold, and sometimes it didn't work like Kentucky, but his successes were big. Amber, I completely agree with you. This news, it's still just a few hours old and still stings. The legacy that Bruton Smith left behind was incredible. Awesome. Fabulous. He and H.A. Humpy Wheeler did so much for Shalimar Speedway, but now Bruton Smith is no longer with us. He leaves behind so many innovations, especially having Lights of Charlotte. It ain't going to be easy going forward without seeing Bruton Smith at a NASCAR event.
Yeah, you're right, Adam. The news is still fresh. Just happened a couple hours before the show. A lot of us were in shock and in disbelief to hear the news of Bruton Smith's tragic past, and really, we're really thinking about his family and friends right now. All of his loved ones. Bruton Smith certainly is a motorsports giant, at least such an extremely powerful legacy, and NASCAR was very lucky to have Bruton Smith come through the pipeline because he's certainly done a lot with the sport. He really helped NASCAR big time through some of the toughest days of the sports during its earlier history. And he, as I mentioned, he was able to bring some really good purses, make it worth going to the racetrack, making it affordable for those teams to come out there and end up getting a really decent race winning. And you mentioned, Adam, Bruton Smith, Humpy Wheeler, what a partnership that was. They, they worked together for so many years and had an extremely successful partnership. When Humpy and Bruton wanted to work on adding lights to Charlotte Motor Speedway at night, a lot of people thought they were crazy. Some called it impossible. They didn't think it was possible to light a large racetrack, like the mile and a half, all the way around. But Bruton Smith's like, I'm gonna prove him wrong there, and he did in 1992. That was the perfect race. One hot night, the Winston. It's the most iconic nights in NASCAR history. Something that the sport will never ever forget. So we're certainly all gonna miss Bruton Smith, but we're always gonna remember the impact that in the legacy that he's leaving behind. And before we move on to our next topic, we have a comment here in the chat room from Edward Hunter saying, when it comes to Jüri Vips, what I would say is that we heard a racial slur from Max Verstappen at practice in Portimao last year, and there were no consequences from Red Bull. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Ed, because I'd actually forgotten about that happening. And you also bring up the point that he made a reference to the people from Mongolia. In fact, the Mongolian government wrote a letter to the UN about him, and Verstappen's response was not my problem. I remember when all of that happened. Thank you for reminding us all that. And Amber saying that Red Bull has a bro culture there, and you said that he's very different on his rivalry with Hamilton compared to Leclerc. You remember Helmut Marko really has made some real aggressive comments towards Lewis Hamilton, certainly a lot more aggressive than they ever made against Charles Leclerc, and that also has you think Red Bull has a habit of mishandling these situations, that's for sure. Oh, you said Portimao was actually 2 years ago. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, time is really flying fast ahead. So sometimes I think something that happened last year actually happened 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, time really waits for nobody. But I do remember that incident now that you brought up of Verstappen saying the things about Mongolian people and Red Bull not doing anything about it. And I guess we can all hope that Red Bull will do something about this incident with Jüri Vips. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed and angry if Vips doesn't suffer any serious consequences. And moving on to our next topic, Cooper Tires has been named. Excuse me. Cooper Tires has been the official tire supplier of the Indy Lights Series since 2014, but that deal will come to an end at the end of the current year. Beginning in 2023, Firestone will become the exclusive tire supplier for Indy Lights. This announcement comes after the grand opening of Firestone's Advanced Tire Production Center in Akron, Ohio. Indy Lights director Levi Jones thanked Cooper Tires for their support, and the series is very excited to begin a new era with Firestone, becoming even closer aligned with the NTT IndyCar Series, which took control of Indy Lights operations in fall 2021. Next, here's Matt White with a grid history update.
Matt White here, time for our weekly trip around the motorsport world to catch you up on some results that you may have missed from the weekend. But before we do, don't forget to check out grid_history on Twitter where we post a motorsport memory on this day in motorsport history every single day, and today's it was no different. The Cup Series in action in 2014, Carl Edwards getting the win at Sonoma. Of course, the Cup Series back in action after their week break. All three series in action this weekend at Nashville as NBC takes up the TV coverage for the remainder of the season. MotoGP were in action this weekend gone though. They were at the German Grand Prix at the Sachsenring. No Marc Marquez to win this year, as he's done for the last however many years. So Fabio Quartararo, the championship leader, took up the mantle and he claimed another win to add to his collection for the season. Adrian Fernandez winning for KTM in Moto2, and Izan Guevara stapling himself into the championship favourite position, you would feel, in Moto3 with another victory. The Repco Supercars Championship were back in action this weekend at the top end in Darwin at Hidden Valley. 3 different winners over the weekend. Anton De Pasquale winning on Saturday, and Cam Waters and Chaz Mostert winning a terrific third race of the weekend to close out another great weekend in the top end. They were supported by the Porsche Carrera Cup Championship Australia, Harry Jones, championship leader, winning the opening race, and Dale Wood getting 2 victories for himself over the weekend and winning the round. S5000, the single seats category, they came to a close this weekend, their finale. Cooper Webster, Caleb Natoa and Amron Cameron, the race winners. Joey Mawson winning the championship and retaining his championship that he won last year. British Superbike back in action after their Isle of Man TT break. They were at Knock Hill in Scotland. Brad Ray winning on Saturday. Jason O'Halloran winning both races on Sunday. Another Yamaha sweep of the weekend in BSB. And as we know, Max Verstappen was the winner in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. Now, EPI, the Endurance Performance Index, we brought it to you last week, and here is this week's update. We had 6 races over the weekend that scored points towards the Grid EPI. 2 at Imola for DTM, Rene Rast and Ricardo Feller getting a win apiece each there. In VIR, should I say, the GT World Challenge USA were in action. We know Kobe was looking at that with great interest over the weekend. 2 wins for Lamborghini, Michele Beretta and Andrea Caldarelli sweeping the weekend. And at Zandvoort, the European version of the GT World Challenge were there. Dries Van Voort and Charles Weerts winning the race on Saturday. And Raffaele Marcello and Timur Boguslawski coming back from a puncture on Saturday to win the Sunday race. So what does that do for our EPI standings? Well, here is the updated top 10. Maro Engel was the biggest mover of the weekend that was inside the top 10. He was 9th. He's up 1 spot to 8th. Boguslawski with that win in the second race of Zandvoort jumped him from 11th up to 6th. Patrick Niederhauser also in there. So the top 6 in the standings for GT World, for the Grid EPI, should I say, are all GT World Challenge Europe racers, and all of them around the top of the championship with Weerts and Van Voort. Gounon, who got a couple of podiums this weekend, and Marcello continues to lead, but his lead was cut this weekend with that non-score on Saturday with the puncher for the Mercedes team. This weekend, more Grid EPI races. IMSA are back in action after their Le Mans break. It's the Watkins Glen 6 hours on Sunday. And we've also got races in Germany for the ADAC GT Masters, of which Marcello will be involved at the top of the standings. And the next round of the Nürburgring Landstrecke Series as well. So plenty of more chances to score. We'll give you an updated top 10 and everything results-wise that you may have missed from this weekend on next week's show. And don't forget also, it is the World Rally Championships Classic this weekend. We started the season with a Classic and we're going to go through the mid-season with one as well. It's the Safari Rally this weekend. Both the Sebastians back in action. Loeb and Ogier back. Ogier for Toyota and Loeb for Ford. Tanak won their, Sebastian Ogier, won there last year. Tanak got the victory last time out in Sardinia. Could be anyone's game, and it's going to be one of the best rallies of the season for action in the stages and around them with all the wildlife and animals that we see in the safari in Kenya. So I'll be back on Sunday in the post-race show to give you a wrap-up of what happened on the Safari Rally, and we'll be back with you next Wednesday to give you a wrap-up of the EPI scoring and results from the weekend.
Thanks, Matt. And yeah, we're really looking forward to Safari Rally King, and definitely a fan favorite on the calendar. And we'll be, as he said, we're going to be sure to report on all of the happenings at Safari Rally King for World Rally Championship here at GRIDnet. And before we get on to the next topic, have some more comments on a very active chat room tonight. Really appreciate everyone for watching our program live tonight. We got a comment from Amber saying that Red Bull mishandles bad PR and Ferrari mishandles race strategy. Amber, I totally agree with that. Red Bull PR is not always the best, and Ferrari race strategy. What could possibly go wrong? Everything can go wrong when it comes to Ferrari strategy. That's the running joke. It seems like it's been forever. And then Ed comes back and says, "In Mercedes mishandles ground effect aerodynamics. Every team has a Achilles heel." Yeah, I'm sure Lewis Hamilton really wishes that the car really stopped bouncing all over the racetrack before he'll be on a back brace for a very long time. And yeah, that's a good point. All teams have strengths and weaknesses. And it seems like the Mercedes on this year's car, that's certainly one of their biggest weaknesses. And it also has talking about Haas F1 saying that they're just really unlucky in Formula One, and you think they're a pretty efficient squad considering how small they are in F1 terms. Yeah, Haas certainly doing the best that they can, and they've certainly had some good runs this season, especially with Kevin Magnussen at the very last minute coming in to replace Nikita Mazepin in that second hot seat alongside Mick Schumacher. And that's a good segue into our next segment because we're going to be talking about Formula One. According to Autosport, 2021 Formula 2 champion Oscar Piastri is expected to make his Formula One free practice one debut during the French Grand Prix weekend with Alpine. Right now, Piastri is the Alpine reserve driver, and he'd be loaned over to McLaren if they need a replacement driver, but Piastri actually doesn't have an on-track racing program for 2022. Alpine was asked during the Canadian Grand Prix weekend. Alpine was asked if Piastri would be racing in Formula One next year, and they said yes. It's just a matter of where he'll be racing. Alpine has a lot of options. With Esteban Ocon's son for the foreseeable future, they may opt to replace Fernando Alonso with Piastri, but that would be a really hard decision. Alonso's making it a hard decision because he's driving well right now, as best as he's ever driven in a long time, and he isn't showing any signs of slowing down. Another option, which is probably going to be way out there, if McLaren drops Daniel Ricciardo from his driver lineup, maybe Piastri could be a wild card to slot in there, or something's that been heavily reported on in the media and rumored a possible seat for Piastri at Williams alongside Alex Albon, potentially replacing Nicholas Latifi. Photo on the screen, courtesy of Alpine F1. In your opinion, which path seems the most likely destination for Piastri?
I think, I think he, I think for Oscar Piastri, I, to me, I think he will replace Nicholas Latifi at Williams and be alongside Alex Albon on the F1 grid next year. You mentioned Kobe. He was last year's F2 champion, and he doesn't have a ride this year. Kind of sad after everything that Oscar Piastri has done, you know. So to me, I think next year he's alongside Alex Albon at Williams, and Nicholas Latifi is looking for a ride.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It seems like going to Williams is probably the most realistic option at this point. And also, some of the rumors were saying that potentially by the end of this season, that Latifi could be out, and we could see Oscar Piastri racing in Formula One later this season. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but based on all of the rides that are going to be available out there, it seems like the Williams seat alongside Albon is probably the most likely scenario, and it's certainly going to be really tough for Williams to let go of Nicholas Latifi because Latifi and all his backers really helped the team through a really difficult time financially when we thought that the Williams team might potentially have to shut down and was going to be all over for one of the most historic teams in Formula One. But luckily, Latifi's back and was able to help Williams get to the point where they are today with the new ownership group. And yeah, but unfortunately, as they say, it's a business, and Nicholas Latifi might find that out in real time that Formula One is a business. You helped us through tough times, but at some point, we might have to move on in a different direction. A quick follow up: in your opinion, Adam, has Latifi done enough to keep his seat?
No, I don't. I don't think. to me, I don't think so. I think next year he will be on the grid in Formula One, but it'll be with a different team. I think it's time for Oscar Piastri to shine on the F1 grid. And in a comment from Darkness Has Fallen said, Piastri is going to Williams. Yeah, I agree with that. I think next year we will see Oscar Piastri in a Williams alongside Alex Albon. Piastri has too much talent not to be in F1. He's the 2021 F2 champion. Yeah, so, and he's not racing this year. That's sad. To me, Oscar Piastri, he deserves to be on the F1 grid. And I think next year we'll see him alongside Alex Albon at Williams.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Adam. I think Piastri should certainly be on the Formula One grid. I think it should have been on the F1 grid this year, but unfortunately, there just wasn't an opportunity for him to be on the 2022 grid. But it's really good to see. It looks like that that it's almost a certain that he's going to be racing in Formula One next year. But as the rumor said, maybe as soon as this season with Nicholas Latifi potentially getting replaced and answering the question, has he done enough to keep his seat? Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I don't think Latifi has done enough to keep his seat. You know, with the teammates they had, George Russell's probably an unfair comparison because George Russell is what I believe is a once in a generation type of talent, and it's really hard to compare a driver to George Russell because he's really good. Heck, look what George Russell's doing in his first year full time with Mercedes. He's beating Lewis Hamilton on the track this year in qualifying and in the race for the most part. So George Russell is doing some really incredible things with Mercedes, and Russell certainly got the most out of the Williams when he was driving there alongside Latifi and even Alex Albon, who's been out of Formula One, come back this year, and he's been outperforming Nicholas Latifi as well. And in Formula One, as everyone knows, you're going to be compared to your teammate, and so far Latifi hasn't been able to stack up with his teammate. So unless he's able to find a ride elsewhere on the grid, this could potentially be the end of his Formula One career. As expected, Oscar Piastri most likely going to be a Williams driver, but strange things have happened. Maybe later in the year, Fernando Alonso decides that he's done with Formula One. It doesn't look like it at the moment because he's running very, very strong. But if Alonso decides that, hey, I've done all that I can do here, and I'm ready to really retire from Formula One this time, then you can just plug Piastri in to that second Alpine seat. And before we move on to some World Rally news, we have two questions in the chat room from Darkness Has Fallen. And the first one, Adam, is that he wants to know, is Mick Schumacher also in danger of losing his seat if he doesn't improve? I know Joshua Birch recently had some strong comments about that on our Grid Live wrap-up show.
He did, and to me, Mick Schumacher is talented. So I don't think he's in danger of losing his seat. To me, the last name Schumacher. Well, we all know how good of a career his dad had. So I don't think he's in danger. I think we'll see Mick Schumacher on the F1 grid for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, Mick Schumacher, he's just like his father in so many ways. Josh brought up the point at the beginning of Michael Schumacher's career. He didn't look like he would develop into the driver that many now consider one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. It took him several years before he was able to find his footing and really turn into that superstar legend driver that we know Michael Schumacher today. And I've seen the same thing from Mick in the junior categories coming up through his career. He didn't really set the world on fire the first year, but by the time year 2, year 3 come around, Mick Schumacher was really lighting it up. And it would surprise me that the same thing happens in Formula One. So I think under today's standards, based on those first years of Michael Schumacher's F1 career, a lot of people will be saying that Michael Schumacher should be out of Formula One because we don't really give drivers a lot of time to develop nowadays. It's really what have you done for me lately, and they expect you to come out and perform right away, even as a rookie. Plus, I feel like if Mick was in a much more competitive car than the Haas, we probably see even greater results than him. And he's also had a lot, and despite some of the mistakes that he's also had some bad luck as well. Just like in Montreal when the car failed on him. And we have a couple of more questions for us, Adam. Darkness is Fallen also says, do you think Sebastian Vettel will retire at the end of this year?
No, I don't think Sebastian Vettel will retire. He's too good of a talent to retire. I think he'll stay in F1 for at least 1 to 2 more years.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think at most he'll probably stay in Formula One for at least 2 more years, and I wonder what Vettel's going to do after that. I understand Sebastian is really passionate about a lot of other topics outside of motorsports. Topics that the average everyday ordinary people really care about. And there's been topic. Yeah, I know he's spoken out on a lot of topics like climate change, human rights, race relations, stuff like that. So I wonder if Sebastian potentially has a future in politics, continuing his activism outside of motorsports, or if he'd like to, let's say, go over to IndyCar. I know he said that he really likes Road America, and the Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan team offered him a test session at Road America someday. So hopefully that'll happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year because they're going to repave Road America later in the year, and it's a 4-mile road course. So Vettel wanted to find some time later to test. Probably not going to happen because it's going to take a while to get Road America repaid and all of the things that they're going to do to upgrade that facility. And another question from Darkness is Fallen is who do you think would win in equal cars, Max Verstappen or George Russell?
That's a good one. Darkness is Fallen has provided us some really good questions tonight. To me, this may sound weird, but I think George Russell. We saw him, what he did against Max Verstappen a few rounds ago in F1 in Spain. So I think George Russell could hold off the F1 world champion from last year. What do you think, Kobe?
I agree. I think George Russell is a really good driver, and I think he still doesn't get enough credit for how good of a driver that he is. If Mercedes can find him the proper car, the same type of car they've given Lewis Hamilton in the last few years, I think George Russell can become a multi-time Formula One world champion. And I don't know if I'm willing to say that George Russell will go down in history as one of the legends of Formula One, but I think he can certainly win at least 2 Formula One world championships. And wow, this chat room is absolutely popping tonight. Got more comments from Amber saying, you remember when Josh said the rumor of Mick and Vettel switching, but you think that Mick is in danger because he needs to stop crashing. Yeah, when you're in Formula One, crashing a lot of cars, especially for a team as small as Haas is, and the financial struggles that they suffered after Mazepin's Russian back sponsorship pulled out, you really don't need to be crashing like that and costing a team extra money that they really don't have. And Amber disagrees with us. She believes that Max Verstappen will win in a head-to-head duel between him and George Russell. And next, Adam, I know you have a little story to tell us about Sebastian Ogier.
I do, and we thank all of you, for all the comments tonight over in the chat room. Kobe and I really, really do appreciate it. So keep your comments coming for the rest of the show. And now switching over to some news from the world of WEC. After competing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, 8-time World Rally Champion Sebastian Ogier will exit the FIA World Endurance Championship. Along with Le Mans, Ogier entered Sebring and Spa in the LMP2 car for Richard Malay Racing. Ogier wanted to do those races to be prepared for his Le Mans debut, potentially impress Toyota Gazoo Racing enough whether they'll put him in a Le Mans hypercar or go for the overall win in the future. In a statement, Ogier addressed his departure from the WEC, saying it was very clear that he wanted to spend more time with his family this year after an intense career in the World Rally Championship. He never had intentions on running the full WEC schedule. But he'll continue running select WRC races, and he's back in action this weekend at Safari Rally Kenya. And speaking of Safari Rally Kenya, it's that time again. It's time for a pick a winner. And we take a look at our leaderboard. Kobe's on top with 26. Alex Fleener from Twitter is right behind him. Joe is now third. I am fourth. And Matt White is down in fifth. And be sure to use the hashtag pick a winner on social media to see your picks. That being said, it's time that Kobe and I made our pick for the classic races on the WRC schedule. Safari Rally Kenya. Last time out, it was Tonic taking the victory in Sardinia. So, Kobe, who wins in the African country of Kenya this weekend?
And before I give you my pick, Adam, want to answer a question here from Amber in the chat room. Saying did Sebastian Ogier not perform at endurance racing? Well, Amber, after so many years running in World Rally Championship, trying to switch to another discipline like endurance racing, sports car racing, it can be really difficult. And I think Sebastian Ogier has certainly found that out. And I guess you could say, yeah, he's certainly had some struggles over there trying to learn the higher downforce LMP2 car. Try to learn how to overtake the GT cars there in the GT Pro and GTM categories and race with and try to be on pace in LMP2. So far, I think Ogier did the best that he could possibly do given his limited experience in this style of racing. But I'm not sure if his pace is going to be good enough to convince Toyota Gazoo Racing to sign off on him potentially running a third hypercar in the 24 Hours of Le Mans last year. I know Toyota Gazoo Racing is thinking about entering a third hypercar in next year's race, potentially with Sebastian Ogier, but I'm not sure if Toyota Gazoo Racing is going to say, Sebastian, you did well enough that we're going to put you in our third hypercar, or maybe they'll just do it anyway, just to show their respects for everything that he's done for that program in the World Rally Championship. And we've been talking about him, so I guess you pretty much know who I'm going to pick. I think Sebastian Ogier is going to drop right back in the World Rally Championship competition, and he's going to win Safari Rally Kenya.
I got a long way to go to catch you, Kobe, so I'm going to have to go with a different driver. One of the hot drivers this year in the WRC has been Kyle Larson. So I'm going with Kyle Larson to get the job done in Kenya. And we have another comment from Darkness Has Fallen said, I heard that the South African Grand Prix is going to come back in 2023. Yeah, that is the rumor that is going around. And Amber says, I hope that happens. We saw the old race in 1993 on F1 TV. Yeah, let our viewers know, the South African Grand Prix at Kyalami used to be the season opener for Formula One for a long, long time. So, a lot of people want to see the South African Grand Prix return to Kyalami. So, hopefully it does happen, and F1 fans will be really happy to see it. And now I'll throw it over to my colleague Kobe as we wrap up another edition of Grid Tonight for this Wednesday.
Yeah, before they end the show, got a few more comments to get through. Amber's pick to win Safari Rally Kenya, just like me, Sebastian Ogier. And this comment right here, like Jimmy Johnson. I was talking about Sebastian Ogier's struggles in his three endurance races, trying to prove to Toyota that he's worthy of getting one of their hypercars and going for the overall win at Le Mans next year or the years ahead. And we all know Jimmy Johnson's really struggled trying to transition from NASCAR, the stock cars, to open wheel racing in the NTT IndyCar series. And I know it's really tough, remembering how dominant these drivers were in their respective series, and then trying something new and not finding all the success that I'm sure that they really like to see. But at the end of the day, got to give him credit for branching out and trying something different. Got to give Jimmy Johnson a lot of credit. After all he's accomplished in NASCAR, he could have decided to walk away from racing completely, and just chill with his wife and 2 daughters for the rest of his life. But instead, he decided he wanted to go after a different challenge, to try out IndyCar racing, a series he dreamed of racing in as a little boy. He wanted to be a race car driver. So got to give kudos to Jimmy Johnson for trying something like this. It's really brave to do something like that to try out IndyCar after a long career in NASCAR. And same for Sebastian Ogier as well. Rally racing is a complete 360 from sports car racing, so it's very, very difficult. So it's no surprise that Sebastian had some struggles, and he really wants to spend a lot of time with his family right now. So he's going to be cherry picking the WRC schedule for the rest of the year and picking picking the rallies that he's really good at, ones that are his favorites. So I'm sure Sebastian Ogier is probably going to get back to winning in the environment that he really knows well. And Amber says she agreed with what I said about Ogier and Jimmy Johnson. Really appreciate you, Amber, and everybody who's been in the chat room tonight. Darkness is falling. Our friend Edward Hunter from Formula Zone, really appreciate all of the wonderful comments. Definitely makes the show a lot more fun for Adam and I. And that's it for tonight's episode of Grid Tonight. Please be sure to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon, invest in Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee or lemonade since it's so hot outside? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grid Network. And you've been in the chat tonight, Ed. Big thank you to you as well for buying us coffee. Amber and Zachary, we greatly appreciate it. Any amount will continue to help us grow out our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below in referral code GRIDnet gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And looking at their schedule coming up, Thursday, check out a brand new episode of Women in Motorsports. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern. And Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up shortly after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville Super Speedway on Sunday night. Yeah, it's gonna be real interesting on Sunday. I'm not used to NASCAR races on a Sunday evening. I believe the NASCAR Cup race at Nashville begins right after 5 p.m. So certainly gonna be a late one for us here on the night at Grid Network. And we're gonna end tonight's show with a special moment of silence for NASCAR Hall of Famer and legend of the sport, Bruton Smith. On behalf of everyone here at Grid Network, we send our deepest condolences to the Smith family during this extremely difficult time, and may Bruton's memory be a blessing. For Adam Lemeries, I'm Cubby Lambert from the Put and Finish. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.